July 10th. You know, call before you see you put your phone on a great place. Some what's up in coil.
Debit and brand.
Yeah.
Roll out more now.
Yeah.
This is Lee Cyrus Moore.
Here.
This is Leon Abelado there.
Here.
So Rupert W. Ross Jr.
Here.
Glenn Webster. So Raymond Williams. The chairman, we have 6 members present, 1 member absent.
Presumably we don't have election starts and we can proceed. Everybody have a copy of the agenda.
I have a copy.
Okay. Everything remains the same, except we can move to the new business. Ask Mr. Molyneux to give us an update and report on the committee of public demonstration for the DS200. Mr. Molyneux can bring us up to date so far.
No problem. Over the past week, I've been trying to compile a list of places that we could do possible demonstrations. Just pass that out to each member. Again, these are just ideas. Nothing is concrete. My whole idea again is just similar to what we did for the agriculture fair, is getting whatever necessary equipment we need. Of course, yes, the DS200 and also one of the voting booths, privacy voting booths. Is that the correct terminology? Yeah. And just displaying at these different locations, 2 hours tops, with the exception of those events that that's all-day thing, like the horse race or whatever. Again, these are just ideas. Also, procuring whatever additional equipment that we would need, like a television screen and a laptop computer, so that we could use the CD information, data information manual to demonstrate what the machine can and cannot do. Afterwards, just pointing out the different points about the machine that the video demonstrated for us, and that's it. Simple stuff.
Before you go on, you have a report and information of the arrival of the privacy booths when they came and where they left, right now, please?
That's correct. Both sets of the privacy booths, the 200 privacy booths, and the ballot equipment are both stored at, came in through Bob Lynch and Trucking and Shipping, and both are now stored at, what's the name of the other company? Fleming Trucking. Are also stored alone in a warehouse under lock and key. I also go by there and do spot checks on both machines, the ballot machine, the ballot privacy booths, and the voting booths, voting machines. I'd say at least 3 times a week to check up on them and make sure there's no tampering of them. We're still waiting to hear on confirmation from the company that send them to us, if we can store them inside of a additional trailer for additional security. That's it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add another one to this list.
So,
Because I stated from the beginning, the Hispanic community must be trained and educated and informed. And I don't see anything here that cover profit, so I would like to add Profit Community Center or the Flamboyant Restaurant, which is a very popular area that we take, that center area.
So we provide the community center. I'm not problem with it. May you say this is a proposal?
Well, I'd like to put that in.
No, it's okay, no problem.
yeah.
The State Profit Community Center. You really got in touch with the officials and their citizens housing parks and recreation have a facility. They have a location there, right, and the 26th item. Right?
And can I ask another question?
Sure.
I'm looking through this list very briefly. There are some areas in here that we're gonna take out, or can we take them out, or we're gonna visit all of these?
Nothing here is concrete. It's just some ideas we came up with. As you know, we didn't have I was told I'm chairman of this committee. I didn't know who is exactly on the committee, so we just came up with a list of names, because I was told I had to report on this. So I'm just, whenever we meet as a committee, whoever is on that committee, I'm not sure yet who's on the committee. We could come up with any ideas we want to and go from there.
I mean, I think the last thing we gave the names will be, by they remember, said yourself, Neil, and Mr. Webster. So they have a portions in the system that has to do with ADA, the provision of the statute required the demonstration be done in English and Spanish because the machine has that capacity. So those are the three names that I mentioned. But I'm here with myself to do it.
Okay.
Three of us?
But four really I don't need to talk. And I think that I don't want us to take out, I wouldn't think that we should take out any, because it's only a matter of a day or time. We can agree in a time whether it is after 5 or mostly when people are home on a weekend. So they don't have the excuse that I've been to work and nobody didn't tell me nothing. When I had a demonstration, I've been walking, I was off island. So we set the timetable in the afternoon after 5 on the weekend, whether Sunday or Saturday, in the afternoon from 1. We have at least a reasonable time that everybody who live in those areas will be able to set up to work.
Can every member have the opportunity to go?
Sure, it's not excluded no matter the board.
Again,
Every board member can go to the board.
the way I envision it, I'm saying, like, for instance, like under the co-chair for the Gallows Bay hardware, it's just an idea. I'm not seeing us being there no more than 2 hours. Right?
Except that we need to get permission.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do that. But I'm just saying, for example, like that, I'm just saying 2 hours at the most. For example, now for the on horse race day, I seen that maybe being an all-day thing, because they have that population of people that's going to be there. You've been there, 300 to 400 people, so you never know, and they're mostly adults.
Except that we want to make sure that it's contact with owners, the property owners, to have some arrangement or some agreement.
Understood.
To be there.
Understood.
Go ahead, you saying something?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we were talking about after 5, and I would say some of these should be daytime, like the one at the legislature, if you want to get the staff there. But the other thing is, I was going to suggest that we have Rotary West down here. It might be appropriate to contact all the Rotary groups, because if they could partner with us, and some of these people could partner with us and also advertise it, then we get the benefit of them contacting their folks as well as us, making a public announcement as well.
Well, what committee and we can say is the timetable is mentioned, because if you have the legislation, you have to check with the days that have scheduled meetings, including a session where they don't have no session, no committee meeting, and if you want to do it in an area, it can be done at evening, because they revise things from there also. So if they're going to do it in the day, like a committee, the whole meeting, you have access to their own media and the staff, so you can check with this McNamara and the president office here to find out what is a more appropriate place and time to schedule that meeting, and making a committee to hold demonstration. So the senators can't say, well, they didn't know, or nobody invited them. If you have it arranged with the committee to hold, make a presentation to the legislature, the employees, staff, and everything will be there. So, some of the daytime and some of the night. Before I move on, I would like to say good morning to everybody and welcome you to be here. If you have a phone, you can put it on my word, please. Anyone here from the media, you can mention your name so you can have it recorded. Or from any elected official's office.
Tom Ader, St. Croix Avis.
Marvin Forbes at VA Action Group.
Justin Shatwell, VI Source.
We didn't hear your last name.
Shatwell.
Shatler? Anyone else? Any office of the governor, senators, anybody?
Joy Peterson, Senator Gifford's office.
Any other visiting individual or citizen?
I don't have to say.
Evelyn Bascom, concerned citizen.
John Squirrel.
Scott Leiber.
Victor Yoga Jr.
Anyone to mention your name also, say your first and club?
I'm Nancy Dash. I worked with Board of Elections in New York with machines a lot like this.
Okay, so. Well, at the appropriate time, we have a portion on the agenda. We're going to entertain conversations and publish, so we afford you opportunity to fill us in on the experience and concerns with that.
What's her name? Nancy.
Dash.
DASH.
Running. So you're welcome everybody to sit down, listen, take the notes. If you have any question, we'll finish. Get to that portion of the agenda, we can have a question. Young lady, sorry, Ms. Fiona Stokes. So we're back to the schedule. Any other areas of concern or timetable? Because you will have to contact these places. These community centers have homeowners associations. Caravan Arcade, I don't know who the child is.
We'll just have to make phone calls to them, and that shouldn't be a problem. The next time I report back, I would either get a yes or no answer from them, or try to put in a possibility for someplace else.
Whether we believe we completed these locations and time, we come back and agree with them, and then have the office, information to the media, to the radio stations, all concerned with some flyers, and let them know these are the days and places we're going to have the demonstrations, the location and time. Additionally, I have a copy of the demonstration that was done at Channel 6. We had a red feed. I have the CD for that can also be used to the Channel 12 and Channel 6, supposed to be government access channel, and also in the schools we could have them demonstrated there. I think Complex have a big screen. You can take those there also in use those locations. So whatever location we come to use, we'll make sure that the public be informed appropriately and properly, so they don't say, oh, we didn't know, we didn't do that something. Any further discussion?
One question.
Well,
What population are we trying to reach at Carville, the lobby of Carville Hotel? Because there's a lot of business stores and
Yeah.
I don't see a
Local
massive
business owners in the area, workers that's in the area. That's what came to mind.
And I'm
Workers
asking because Saturday I went out, and I walked that old area trying to find some local craft.
Mhm.
It was basically empty, a lot of businesses there are closed,
Okay.
so we need to go to that.
I wonder if you can substitute that with the public library. The public library is up the street, you can find it.
Are they open on Saturday? Or evening?
Housing parks and recreation. But you could do it during the day,
That's,
if the people want to be there, they'll be there. When they got to be there, okay, where they is.
not okay, you know
We
better
use
than
bingo
that.
halls.
Huh?
We use the bingo halls.
Oh,
People showed up.
so, if,
They will go for July, but they won't go for something like.
well, you put the location, if it's the Carvel might be a situation you might not be inclined to support, then maybe you can use a public library. Because they have current lighting and everything, and then the post in charge is Wallace Williams,
It's been retired.
yeah? Whoever's in there, no,
Yeah.
oh, Miss Bow.
Yeah, we'll find out later, yeah. Again, these are just ideas. This is a place you could subtract, take, you know, and this is just recommendations to the board. Nothing, again, is in concrete. I just handed out a list. What this is basically is just a list of names for demonstrations.
You have extra one?
But-
You have extra copy?
Yeah, I gave them.
Any further discussion on that situation? We know we have the 200, the voting private booths to allow the process of marking your ballots before you take it to the DS 200 to be scanned and deposited in the ballot box and recorded. We know we have all those things in place, so hold on to it.
But we put this on file here.
Yes, you can run those copies, Mr. Johnson. You give her that, or copy those documents and give them to Mr. Johnson. Give her the original.
Okay.
Give her the original, you keep a copy, and you forward it to the person in charge of that process.
Okay.
So we can move on to...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Rock.
On the same topic, the two items that concerns me. One, when is the date of the demonstration that was authorized for board and staff
Well,
participating?
I spoke to Ms. Johnson, she had an email she just get from Ms. Scott Morrison Alexia. And she was trying to determine if August 5th and 6th in St. Thomas and John, and then 7th and 8th in St. Clair would work for us, so I believe
I apologize, that lady represents
ESNS.
Okay.
According to the contract, they're supposed to come to train the staff and employees of the system. So this is an email I just got from Ms. Johnson from Alexa. Everybody have a copy of it. She just writes to me. And August 7th and 8th, if there's no problem those days, we are, anybody have any problem August 8th and 7th?
Show tomorrow.
No, August 7th and 8th is the day that she's speaking tentatively to be in St. Croix for that process. And the 6th and 5th and 6th in St. Thomas. And I'm sure that she sent it already to Sharon. Sharon is happy here that it's St. Thomas. And Tricia and Ms. Johnson here. So our concern would be the 7th and 8th of August in St. Croix. The problem,
We are scheduled to meet on August 7th, am I correct? Our next August meeting is on 7th.
which one? In St. Croix?
Local meeting.
Oh, well, this meeting.
Yeah, well, that's not a problem.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
could make the meeting that demonstration. So the
And
meeting,
that's for training purposes.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
So that the machine, the demonstration of the machine to the staff would occur at that time also.
And the voting booths, yes.
Okay, thanks for the information.
So we don't have
Could you repeat the dates, please?
August 7th and 8th in St. Croix.
In St. Croix and St. Thomas?
St. Thomas is 5th and 6th. So we have to be in St. Thomas on the 5th and 6th, and get double close.
Can we get copies of that
Sure.
information when it doesn't have to be now, but it can be emailed to us, at least to me, I don't know about the other members.
Is it right here?
I think she sent it.
The second, and I don't know whether or not really, I'm concerned about, and I mentioned it before, that when we go to the public, we're in a position to discuss the voting process. You just alluded to
Definitely,
it.
yes.
Are we going to put that, and that process needs to be first vetted by this board, and then at some point adopted by the joint board, because the principle needs to be territorial.
Right.
So my question is, are we going to wait until after August 7th to put that together, or are we going to prepare, are we going to work on that before that?
I don't think it'll be a problem either way, because it's just a process of the introduction and training on the machines, opening, closing them back, moving them around. And the demonstration process goes to ballot that you get, mark your ballot in the private voting booth, take it from there, you take it to the DS200, and you scan it there, you read it, it's all right, it goes. So all of that would be involved in that process of training and demonstration to the public.
And okay, I understand that we understand the process.
That's what we tell the public will be also.
The question is whether or not we are going to reduce that to some form so that it could be adopted as a policy. We can't have processes in St. Croix that are different in principle from St. Thomas and John. So at some point or the other, we need to reduce the policy writing and have it adopted. And that's
Policy, that's how you vote.
the procedure for voting.
Voting. We put it out.
I'm a voter, I show up, step 1, step 2,
Yeah,
step 3,
sure.
step 4, step 5.
As a matter of fact, there's a demonstration in the DS200 for sure. You can take it right out of there and remanufacture it and put it right to the public for them to see. Because if you don't have a booklet, is there anybody here? Have one?
I never had that.
Well, it's BSNS sent a booklet to show you from the book to the voting, to the machine, to out the door, and it's all out in the demonstration process.
Again, I understand that.
So we could adapt that.
Keep in mind, I've never seen it, so that's why I am concerned about it happening.
Well, I could give you a copy because I think the last thing when it was you one day, and I done this well, Miss Claudia Georges still probably have your request.
Senator, I'm sorry. What I understand is that we should have like a form, and this should be copies for everybody who comes in, step 1, step 2, step 3, and not rely on the book, which sometimes is very hard to read for some people. But if you have step 1, step 2, step 3, and then we have them in English and Spanish, some people would pick it up, oh, okay.
I'll tell you what we can do for that
Right.
demonstration process. We get a big billboard size, or give it 3 by 4 feet, put the steps in English and Spanish, take it to the areas that you have in the demonstration, and explain it, and they'll see it there at the same time, except that also it is the manufacturer's way of demonstrating the simple way and form to use and vote out of the privacy booth and goes step to each. So you come in, you register with the poll books. You go there, and it comes on to the ballot, and it tells you everything in that booklet, and in the demonstration. So all you would probably need to do, if you have a better way, to just make a bigger, larger board, and have it to the locations, demonstrating in English and Spanish, and who comes and speak in English and Spanish would also be able to read and see it, along with being demonstrated to the public and everybody. If you want to change that, that's not a problem.
Again, I'm not interested in changing anything. I'm just interested in having it reduced to writing so that we all are consistent in what it is we're telling
Sure,
the community. It's not how I look at the process or how you look at the process, it's how the process we have agreed will be.
I just want to be sure that we don't make too much abortion from the manufacturer's way of utilizing the equipment through the processes. All
I understand.
All we would need then to improve on that is what they have written in English in the brochure, to do a larger demonstration in English and Spanish, because it is written in English all through the process. And as a matter of fact, the DVD that I left had that on the machine. Anything else?
I have also.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, if everything goes smoothly, and nothing ever goes smoothly. We need to start and set in policy what happens when a voter goes to the tabulator and for some reason it's jammed or the document gets shredded, whatever. We need to start setting policy. This is what will happen next.
That is why the lady is coming on the 7th and the 8th to train the staff, the board members, and employees what they need to do with the machine. We explained earlier that you just file your ballot, you take it to the scanner,
Right.
align in a position now to demonstrate every step of the way. And that's why I keep explaining to people, when you get a document in your hand, read it, there are questions, ask the questions. Get the ballot from the clerk that is going to be trained when they get here. We will notify the employees, the potential employees. They go to the poll book to get the ballot, the name and everything. They get this the ballot. They go to the voting booth. We have 1 president here. X amount of those votes for voting will be utilized depending on the population of the voting public. They have the time, like law, it says 5 minutes to vote. You go in there, you mark your ballot, you leave from there, go to the gate 200, put it there, you look at it, the screen shows up and says, show you Mr. Webster, you voted for XYZ, all the officers you voted for. If you see that you did select, made a mistake, you take it back. All that is explained in the brochure. You have it put in a separate spoiled ballot box. You get a new one, you repeat the process again, and then that is what the policy and the demonstration of the machine. I don't have it here with me. I don't want to go through every step to somebody later say, well, that ain't what boss said. If they want boss said, well, it's book and the manufacturers.
I think the point that Mr. Ross is making, it's not policy until we adopt it. It's their instructions. But what we do based on the joint board adopting a policy, if we're going to use that, fine, but we have to do it. And I have a concern that, and it'll come up later, that there's a lot of stuff going on in St. Thomas and St. Croix is not aware of. So I would be more comfortable if the whole elections board was trained at one time, as opposed to in 2 different locations. So any questions that are asked could be asked jointly and resolved jointly, because we have to have a policy that's the same for all 3 islands. So, I understand they want to come here and want to come to St. Thomas, and they need to do it for the staff, but I think the board should be in one location.
Except a lot of us sitting here know we have board members in St. Croix, St. Thomas. Schedule meetings in St. Thomas, they don't. St. Croix, we have more attendance percentage-wise than St. Thomas in that district. So if you can, all of us can fight in St. Thomas on the 5th to the 6th, and you find 2 or 3 people from St. Thomas and John in there. We still adopt a policy because the training that the lady is coming to do
Right,
It will be the same for St. Thomas and St. John, and collectively we can meet at one joint board meeting to exchange our ideas and make the policies that we go to adhere to for the whole territory.
I hear you on this,
Okay.
just in that one, if we did it in one place, we could do the policy one time, instead of somebody going away from it and saying, oh, I heard this and I heard that. I mean, a perfect example when we get to it is Arturo Washington sending a letter to a senator that he has no authority to send. I mean, you know, it's like St. Thomas decides they're gonna do something, they send in budget stuff, we don't have any budget stuff. Can't have
Well,
it so.
It depends on the majority of the joint board to decide if we are going to subordinate ourselves to the budget office as opposed to following the law that says the budget for the board of election is submitted to the legislature as opposed to the budget office, who seem to have some control and convincing communication to the St. Thomas City District. We, by law, prepare our budget and submit it to the committee or the legislation. They have already submitted one some places. I don't know if we have any control until we get to the joint board meeting to agree that we're going to send one place, our budget, to the legislature as prescribed by law.
No, I mean, this district has the responsibility to submit its own budget as St. Thomas does. So what I'm saying is, we have, from whatever information, because you talked about this in several meetings, whatever information was utilized to, of the St. Thomas budget, we haven't been privy to this letter that we just received prior, well, at least I wasn't prior to getting an email yesterday, about even the letter from the budget office asking us to use that money. I think we're sort of behind the eight ball with respect to time, and my concern is just the timeliness. I know what the law is. I mean, we still have an opportunity to, and we have to, pick up our own budget and go and defend it. What they do with their budget is something different. There is no joint board budget, so we don't have to have an agreement on that, but we do need the information in order to prepare it. And that's my concern. There's new information perhaps shared in St. Thomas that hasn't been shared at this point.
All right. I think if you have, if you look at the copy when we get to it, apparently Mr. Brigham, the chairman of the Committee on Finance, sent a communication to our acting supervisor of election. We don't have Karen Benjamin. The last time I checked, she was supposed to be the acting deputy / administrator. So there now it seems to be confusing the whole process of who they need to notify. But I don't think that the district of St. Thomas letter should have gone to Mr. Watlington, the chairman of the board, versus Mr. Benjamin, the acting deputy supervisor / administrator for the system. So whatever he did, he's asking for a lot of information on how, unless you have access to it, unless we have access to it, we will take care of this stuff. But anyway, when we get to that, we can go through about the Johnson, getting the copy of the letter from Ms. Alexis. First. Yes. So we agree now that we. Okay. Will this copy the same?
Yeah, it's 7 copies.
Sorry. First. So are we going to, in addition to having the, in addition to having a training done on the 7th and 8th and the 5th and the 6th, are you suggesting that we have a joint training again with all board members present? So you have to have Ms. Wells with the executive committee communicate with Ms. Alexia, find out if she should be willing to do a joint same way they did when Mr. Matthew Nelson came to St. Thomas, except they can play the same place and do that right here. Anybody have any problem or suggestions they want to change?
Well, I support the request that you asked the joint co-chair if it's possible to have a joint board training session. Either one of those days, but it is important.
All right, no problem. We'll do that tomorrow. The,
Question.
yes, sir.
Does that have to be in case, you guys know like this video conferencing thing, because everybody might have a issue, some people might not be able to show up in St. Croix or in St. Thomas or whichever. Would there be an issue with it being one of those setup where you have video conferencing for that training?
The video conferencing is not a problem, except that the centers that are available, you can't just use them free. You have to pay to use them. So, I don't know.
I'm not sure it would be appropriate just because I think it's going to be some hands-on stuff. You'd be able to see it, but you wouldn't be able to, with the machine itself, so it might not be as appropriate. And I was going to say the same thing as the chair, that the only reason we were able to utilize that stuff, as you know, is because we were
Okay.
I'm sorry, my voice was
And besides, the contract with PS, and that's required to appear, not a video conference, to be present in the original district.
Yeah, I was more, I was just trying to see if our members give them all possible to show up.
Video not, if they don't show up, they can't make their show, because I've been to video conference in St. Croix and St. Thomas, and we see the same 3 or 4 or 5 people.
Just, okay.
And then somebody will actually tell what they did or what they said. I can't remember that all the sense. So it's better that everybody attend to their own information and make the decision accordingly. We can move to the subcommittee and search for the EDA compliant office case, Mr. Webster. So far you got with it?
I'm not even sure if we agreed to move from this operation to improve it.
Assuming, because none of being sure if we agreed to move or relocate. I don't know if you were here when Ms. Barnes made her complaint. You were here again when the gentleman complained about bad that he couldn't use. There is no way that I don't have a staff, or I don't be here, when people cut in 2 days, she got wild and coming and making noise. So regardless of whether we will stay here or not stay here, we need to speak and find location that's ADA compliant. And I gave the information, you have ADA compliant facilities owned by the government, you have the GRS, 2 space empty at the bottom. So I'm looking for money to give back to the government for GSC or GRS. But the building right there, like Golden Rock, they had meetings, nobody don't use the building, it's ADA compliant. The compliance right here, the lady mentioned, she showed a lot of things, except that I wrote the letter a week later to the Commissioner of Property and Procurement by law supposed to locate the place. And unless we want to wait and delay until someday, they tell us the same thing they tell us in Thomas' office, that you can't use the have money until you come to ADA compliance. If I want to wait for that, fine with me. I don't have a problem if I want to stay, but I'm not going to be here when these people come in the wall and breaking on the wall. The lady made her complaint clear and her suggestions clear, except that Ms. Barnes input and written report. So we need to start looking and searching and asking questions. And then when you get information, if who don't want to leave or to remain here under the complaint that the lady made, just let's wait until she comes and send a citation, because she's supposed to by law make inspection and report. And if she ain't do it yet, they're just waiting for a time for her to get tied up in it. And you can't spend have our money for that same reason. So we need to get beyond whether we're sure we're going to move from here. The EDA space for the Board of Election is not about whether we want to move or not. It is whether if we have to move or come into compliance, we have places in mind that we can start talking to people. Mr. Moore, Ms. Moore.
It's
Yes, you finished. Mr. Moore, you finished? So you don't have nothing? So the next meeting will come back and let us know if it's after anybody.
Two questions, one for clarification. You said you and what staff here was people were knocking down walls. You talking about, do you fit in this place?
No.
Next
Next door, they're working right next door. I don't have nothing to do with next door. I'm saying when Ms. Barnes came here at a joint board meeting some months ago, she stood right here and made a
I was
complaint.
here,
I know, but I want to put in the record. And I wrote the Commissioner of Property and Procurement outlining her concern that by law the Commissioner of Property and Procurement have the responsibility for locating adequate spaces for the election system of both Ms. Lynn Maduro or Ms. Barnes never responded to the correspondence. So I can sit back and wait.
probably had said that before, but my other question rather is this. Well, your answer leads to the next question. Do we know how long that situation is going to take place? And the other question
Over
was
here?
Yeah, and the
No,
other,
I don't.
well, maybe we could find that from this landlord. Because my other question was, I mean, having sat in the legislature for 8 years and they've been talking about moving it for the entire time I've been there, I'm not going to depend on this government to find anything or to do anything, because they sat and let that whole AG's building fall into disrepair so nobody could use it, as they did the previous legislature. But the previous legislature building wasn't a government building. But I mean, we tend to let, and when I shut down those two buildings for labor, they never reopened. So I'm not even contemplating on waiting for the government to do anything about it. So I was going to just suggest as an alternative or as something additional, if we could ask the present landlord what he would do to make this building, if he would make this building compliant, if we're saying we're going to move. I mean, because that might be a faster route. I don't know. I mean, I'd rather be in a government building because we waste so much money on rent, always. But that situation hasn't changed, and labor spends over $1 million a year, rent and stuff. And, it's most of the federal money they get goes into rent. So if we're waiting for this government to change its policies with respect to buildings and accommodated people in government-owned property, I think we're going to be a little foolish. So I would just like to see what, a letter go to the landlord and tell them our concerns so that they would be apprised of something, because even if we do move, if we choose ultimately to move, we would have to give them some notice as to why, so maybe they could remedy it.
Excuse me, before you go on, I was over there this morning and I spoke to the gentleman who's responsible for building up the next door space, because there's a sign on their marks, medical and office spaces. They have yet not to complete. They seem they're going to complete no time in the next 60 days or whatever. And I am sure that the landlord know about Ms. Barnes' presentation, because I was the one that was sitting right where Mr. Ross is sitting, and I asked her when and is she going to notify Sunny Isles LLC about the property. She hasn't got back to me, and that is as far as look. But my position is that I don't believe that the government of the Virgin and the government employees have owners of property that we can continue to pay the mortgage to private corporations all the time. I have a copy of the lease here. I'm going to read it in the record so you can say, this is the lease between the government of the Virgin acting through property procurement. The Lockhart card is going to belong to the Virgin government. They have it to hold until January 31st, 2017. 4,641 square feet of space, $22 a square feet. You're going to pay an annual rate of $102,102 at the rate of $8,508.50 plus an additional annual elevator maintenance charge of $33 plus $100 at a rate of $276.56 payable on the first of each month. I've been in that building. We are paying for elevator that we don't have to use. Because think anybody that uses the elevator going to the vote election. The government to register the vote and came from the bank is in the same building. So why should we pay Lockhart Garden $2,000 a year when the GERS have property in St. Thomas and me calling about St. Thomas, I'm saying right here in St. Croix, we have a GERS building with employees of the government who can't get the money. The government asks them to pay in their share of the government share, and we're going to give LLC a company. Again, money again, we have our own property we could invest in. We could do that. Comfort zone is comfort zone for people's minds sometimes. But I don't believe I'm going to be supporting no way paying LLC. Sonya's LLC. Money we could pay to the government training system. Maybe somebody else might have different philosophy. But too many times a year I see the government taking the money and paying off the mortgages in the millions of dollars for absentee landlords. And we have people right here catching hell to get the retirement check from the government because they claim of unfunded liabilities. But we need to move forward in case Sonya's is not prepared, and in case you can't pay them for what they invest there for the build up, because St. Thomas office, the government of the Volgens pay close to $80,000 to build it out before they're not paying $102,000 a year. So it's not that the government of Lockhart Garden pays to build it out. We pay to build out Lockhart Garden property over Banco Popular and come right back to getting $102,000 a year and pay for elevator maintenance in the building. We don't need an elevator here or in the GERS building right in Sun. As a matter of fact, Golden Rock has an elevator in the building and it's already designed and approved for ADA compliance. So we can sit here and don't want to move because we like living in a particular place or being in a particular place. Parking space is there, so we need to move on from that. I don't have no problem, you don't want to move, you know. I don't really live it, but I know one thing. For Brian coming in here when nobody knocked on no building. It's not
Mr. Russell, Hans was first.
yeah, no, okay, but wait a minute, go ahead. I want to finish.
You recognize it. You recognize it, right?
No, no, but I need to.
Let me, my recollection, Chairman Byron, is that, and let me just, for the record, state that Member Raymond Williams actually excused.
Mr. Williams made the information available that he was present and he was bringing information. I haven't seen it, and I know Mr. Webster received any information from Mr. Williams. Ms. Johnson received any information from Mr. Williams. So for that time and moment that we speak now, he was just talking. Documenting information that I gave. Mr. Webster don't have it, Mr. Webster don't have it, and Ms. Johnson don't have it, and I haven't seen it. So when Mr. Williams get with Mr. Webster and Mr. Williams and anybody who was at the committee with him decided they want to go over the concerns of the assessment of the building, it still remains that they have to look at other places.
Fine. Well,
I don't want to be here sitting down to wait and nobody in Sonya's LLC to agree to do anything for us to become under control that they had in St. Thomas office. For the year they had to have our money right down in the bank. We couldn't use it because they were not AD compliant. So that's the majority want to leave it there, leave it there.
Let me just bring it again. I'm talking about process. In order for us to move here, there, or anyway, at some point the other Department of Property Procurement has to become involved. In order for the Department of Procurement...
They can't come involved until the committee starts to get the information to move forward. That's what I'm trying to get clear. If the committee don't do anything, you can't wait for Ms. Millen Maduro, what her name is, to respond. Since March, she responded in no way, shape or form. So we're going to wait until she responds, or we're going to start moving to let her know what we did.
Again, as I understand the process, and only for this agency, but for the government in general, they have to submit some assessment, AD assessment documentation to Ms. Barnes' office, who would then make suggestions as to how we proceed. And then if the decision is that we need to move from here, then property and procurement will get involved. Property and procurement is not going to get involved unless we do our homework.
When you say we, who's supposed to get the information? Is their committee supposed to do that?
This board has established a committee,
Yes.
of which Mr. Webster and Mr. Williams are a member. I don't know who the third member is. And Mr. Williams, based on the meeting that we did not attend because we were not invited, basically said he's in a position to assist this board in putting together the documentation necessary to submit to Ms. Barnes so that she could do an assessment and sign off on whatever it is we want to do. Unless we do that, we're just spinning wheels.
Unless Mr. Williams get the information that he's supposed to turn over to Mr. Webster, unless Mr. Webster move on information, we're at the same place all the time.
That's all
That's
he's
what I'm
saying.
saying.
That's what I'm saying, so
y'all-
it's not a weak thing, it's a committee thing because Mr. Williams was there. He have to bring information since June 21st to Mr. Webster. If Mr. Webster don't get it and he looking for it, then we're in the same place all the time.
Remember, Brian?
So that's what we're saying.
I know, but you see, and I appreciate we're different, so and you point fingers. I'm not interested in pointing fingers.
You're not pointing
Let me finish.
finger, Mr.
Let me
Ross.
finish.
It's a simple.
Let me finish. At the end of the day, regardless of whether the committee or not, this board is responsible.
Yeah.
So I'm just suggesting, as the chairman, that you direct the committee to do what it is they're supposed to do so that this board can move forward. That's all.
I don't think I understand what you're trying to say, and I want to wait a little time this morning. Let me finish, please. I am telling you if I forget. I wrote a letter after Ms. Barnes left here to property and procurement committee, and every member should have a copy of the letter. If you don't have it, I'll ask Ms. Johnson to get it to I again. Now, if you don't get the letter, and you didn't understand what I told the property and procurement commissioner by law, that is their job. If they sit on their job and don't do nothing, Mr. Williams, who works in the Lieutenant Governor's office, he was there. He must bring information that I didn't get from him and Mr. Webster didn't get from him to Mr. Webster to move on. Once he don't do that, we still the same.
Okay, but the point is, the ultimate point is, if this committee never does anything, it's still the board that's responsible.
Yeah.
Just like if this,
Well,
just
tell-
like, wait,
wait, so
I'm
the
not
board should do.
finished, I'm not finished. Well, I think that what the committee needs to do is write a formal letter so there's something documented, because then we're gonna continue, the government will continue to say, we weren't there, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. If we don't have something to show that we did it, we have your letter, as you said. We don't have a letter from this committee to anybody inquiring about anything or making the assessment or whatever. So that's what needs to be done. But whether this committee is successful or whether, and I'm not saying they're not going to be, but if this committee decided to sit back and do nothing, it's still the board's responsibility. Then you would need to appoint somebody else, or we would need to take some other action, because it's the same thing with the budget. Because one person doesn't do something, we can't say, oh, we throw up our hands, because we're ultimately responsible for running the elections in this place. And if we don't let the legislature understand how important some of the changes that need to be made so we'll be in compliance with the feds are going to shut us down. Why does nobody understand the severity of what we're dealing with and the time constraints that we're dealing with? That's my continuing problem with this board and with the joint board, is that we can sit and talk, and it's not that what we're saying isn't important or shouldn't be recorded, but all we're doing is talking until we take some affirmative action. And that what I'm suggesting is the same thing Mr. Ross is suggesting, the same thing you're saying. We're just saying it different ways, that this committee gets something tangible, a letter or whatever, assessment, whatever needs to be done to move this process forward. The same way we need to get the reform stuff into the legislature instead of some letter from one board member about election reform that hasn't been agreed upon by the board. It's just, everybody's going around in circles and we're not getting anywhere.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking the same thing over and over, and I think the time is running out of it. Can we ask Mr. Webster when he and William can meet so that we can go out and look at one or two buildings and come back with us and let us know, and also let property and procurement know that we have to move in order to be in compliance with the ADA. I mean, I think we're wasting time here. So Webster, when do you think that you can meet with your committee? It's you and Williams alone. Walk in Williams' office and tell him we got to sit down and talk about this. And let us know, because we can, like Ms. Mohammed said, we cannot sit here and just talk, and don't do anything. Tell Mr. Williams, you and he have to meet, these are the buildings that we have to consider. Get a letter to the property and procurement, and get a letter to the chairman, so that we can all be informed and move forward. And if GRS is the building, let's go with GRS. We're not here to satisfy our own self-satisfying. We're here to serve the people. And St. Croix is just 27 miles long. When you go off island, you have to travel 1 hour to go to the doctors or to go any place. Come on, guys, you know, this is just the island. So if we move to GRS and members here don't want to go, that's the problem. Then they don't run for re-election next time, you know? We're not here to serve ourselves.
But I would like to underscore the other concern. I don't care if we stay here, we go someplace else. I want to meet where everybody can attend if they want to attend. But what we do have to do is consider whatever legal obligations. And I don't know what they are because I've never seen the lease with Sunny Isle, so we have to give them some notice. So we need to put them on notice that this building is not in compliance.
Can
And
you
what
make
our
a motion to
concerns.
the chair so that we can move a motion so that the chair can look into that? So to Sunny Island.
Well, no,
mean,
okay.
come on, let's
I'll
move the
move two
motion.
things. I'll move to two things. One, that the committee meetings they've agreed to next week and start their assessment of the problems in this building. Notify Sunny Isle of what those problems are. Also notify whoever is necessary of the assessment, you know, requirements that they were asking for at the meeting, which Mr. Williams should be able to apprise you of. Get that information to the people that are responsible for receiving it, so we have something documenting that we're making some movement with this issue. So moved.
Second. You ready to make a motion?
I just made a listen to it, I don't talk. Roll
It's the
call.
same thing everybody's saying, just like you say, just get it done.
See, go ahead, the roll call. You ready to motion?
Want me to repeat it?
You're on two parts, right?
Yeah, the first part is that the committee meet as it's agreed to through its chair to make an assessment of, one, the problems in this building, the needs that we would have in another location. Get that assessment to Ms. Barnes' office, property and procurement, and any other government entity that requires this information so we can move forward. And obviously report back maybe by email since it'll be prior to our next meeting to the other
Email,
members.
to report them right here, I don't want email.
Well, the other members, you can get a hard copy, but it'll be prior to, what, if he's saying he's gonna meet, and the reason I said email is because he's saying he's gonna meet next week. I don't wanna delay this until August 7th when we're talking about doing the training. So, get a hard copy to Ms. Johnson of whatever is sent, and you could copy everybody else by email so we can stay abreast of what's going on.
You're a second and okay, roll call. Mr. Adalba Bryan,
Yeah?
Mr. Rhoda Mullenor,
You, yes.
Mr. Lisa Harris Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Leon Gallardo, me,
Yes.
Mr. Rupert Ross Jr.,
Yeah.
Deputy Website, yes. Rima Williams.
Senate?
We have 6 yeas and 1 absent.
Motion carries. Now, and for the record, Mr. Webster is a part of the same organization. He should have all the new updated ADA compliance requirements. I should have no problem with it.
Exactly.
So if they want to move forward with the ADA compliance, he has access to all of the information. So, he and Mr. Williams.
I'm not doing it myself. I'm not gonna-
Well,
You hear why that thing no more? Look, what's the next item?
Mr. Chair, I think we missed, report on subcommittee from 2 on the bottom of the first page.
And I didn't miss it. I will read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we just.
We did the
Inventory
demonstration.
and removal and storage.
No, we didn't get to that.
But you skipped it.
I skipped it because I wanted to bring you up to
That's
date
fine.
only with the machines and the 200 holding moves.
I just wanted to report on that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We finished with this ADA reporting and all of that assessment from Mr. Williams and Mr. Webster and the committee and such. So that's the inventory and removal and storage.
The committee members are Williams, Mona, and myself. At the time the committee was established, Member Williams was present, Member Mona was here. He sort of unofficially tasked me with acting as spokesperson of the committee. My understanding of the charge of the committee was in light of the fact that we had to retain custody of the machines for a 2-year period, which is up until December of, after November of 2014. The committee needed to find some place to store them other than the current location, because the intent is to bring the new machine, the targeting machines into it.
Right.
Is that okay? As far as the inventory is concerned, that is basically a matter of record. We have a copy of all the serial number for all the machines, etc. That's right in the room. It's just, I don't know if the staff has it, but I know it's available.
We have one, Ms. Johnson, and got Mr. Phillips to prepare one.
That's correct. In terms of removing the machines, I have heard board members, not necessarily in this district, allude to the fact that the machines can be removed and just discarded. And I did some inquiry, and I'm reporting back. I spoke to the Assistant Commissioner of Property and Procurement. I've been advised that since the machines were purchased by local, the law requires purchase of the machines to be in conjunction with the Department of Property and Procurement. So it's not that the Board of Elections went out and purchased the machines on their own. So, and since the machines were purchased originally by local funds, and then the new machines and the upgrades to the old machines were done by federal funds, by harbor funds after the 2002 happened, the system cannot just dispose of them without involving property and procurement. Because technically, in one instance, some of them are federally funded machines and other are locally funded machines. And what the staff on St. Croix is willing to work with the Board of Elections to assist them with that process, but they need us to write a letter to the Commissioner of Property and Procurement requesting that assistance.
So then, in
That's-
conjunction with that statement, then it will be up to property and procurement to be able to secure and remove the machines and keep them secured until the deadline for any requirements to meet the law.
That is basically my global understanding, global request. If they don't have space within the property and procurement department, they have access to space within the government. So they could store them someplace in the government that is secure and etc.
Except that how would property and procurement be responsible for securing the equipment within the timetable by law? They have them in their custody without our knowledge and control. Then we should maintain custody of those machines until the deadline expires to be responsible for them.
The answer, again, that's for discussion with the Commissioner of Property and Procurement and staff. But my thing is that they would provide us with storage, which we would have control over, whether it government storage facilities, whether within the Department of Property and Procurement or in education or public safety, wherever it is the storage areas available. they would work with us to secure the machines. But to start the process, a letter needs to be sent to the Commissioner of Property and Procurement requesting that she authorize her staff to do that. As soon as she says, go ahead, they're prepared to work with us to make it happen.
Except that we'll make it clear to the Commissioner of Property and Procurement that by law, the custody of those and control and security of the property of the machine remains election system and
I understand that.
until the deadline, because I am not going to have property and procurement put them in a warehouse that they control and we'll be responsible for what is taking place. So we have to maintain the control of those machines until the legal return, because the law requires the election system to maintain the records until that time. Such property and procurement have no such requirement to save the machine. We are the ones responsible, even the purchasers.
I understand that. Therefore, the request from the committee through the chair, through me, the spokesperson, is as the chairman of this district board, that you craft a letter and make the request to property and procurement.
Motion.
I so move.
Second. You like the motion?
Yeah, the motion.
The motion is that based on my the motion is based on my committee report that the chairman of the St. Croix District Board craft a letter to the Commissioner of Property and Procurement requesting assistance of the Department of Property and Procurement to provide storage facility for the election system to store and retain custody of the machines. Basically, that's what we're asking.
I have a question. After the deadline for the maintenance and securing of the records of the machine, you want to include and authorize property and procurement for final disposition of them, since we will not be required by law to keep them stored or anything. Because if they buy it, they want it back. After the deadline, come back and do what they want with it. They can phone them up, sell them to another location, or give them to some union organization.
Again, if that's what the board wants to do, or the board wants to decide that they want to be part of the process of selling the machines themselves.
I would want to be a part of it because
They're used,
they buy it.
those machines are still used in the jurisdiction.
That's what I'm saying.
But
They
the
use
board-
them.
Absolutely. When Barry bought them, they were absolutely.
But they're still being
They're still
used,
being used.
and they're still being used in other jurisdictions, and they've been upgraded to be ADA compliant. But
This is why I was
that's not
suggesting
the
that
date
property
from.
procurement could do what they want with them by selling them.
Yeah, they can do what they want. Yeah, but they should do what they. My only suggestion is, I have no problem with it. After we comply with the law. The only suggestion is that at the time we want, when that time occurs, that we should be giving public procurement some direction. Remember, the machine still ultimately.
The property procurement sell them or give them to other jurisdictions they want.
Well, in November of 2014, the board I may suggest, November 2014, after the election, the board meets and says to public procurement, sell the machines. Oh no, we want to donate them to Timbuktu. Oh no, throw them in the dump. But that's a board decision, December 2014. I will.
Okay, roll call.
So if the sales are empty, you're not to sit around with them.
True.
Good point.
Roll call.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yeah.
Lord Almana, Lisa Osborne, Lilian Pelado, Daniel,
Yes.
Rod Junior,
Yeah.
second one, say yes. Okay, you have Reverend Williams absent. You have 6 members present and 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Motion is passed. When we speak of a machine, we talk about all the machine and printer, reader, and everything that came with the package. Everything related to the ship system, right?
That's
But
correct.
that's what you put in the letter.
I know, that's what was the action. Any more discussion on the, now we can reach to the meeting on July 24th. St. Thomas, at 3 p.m. on the budget. I think Ms. Johnson will provide some copies of the request that we made yesterday. I don't know if you want to skip that and go into executive session to discuss how we're going to prepare and address that and move to the other item on the agenda. What are the wishes of the members here? Go ahead.
I haven't been intimately involved in the budget preparation. I've gone and testified in front of the legislature as part of this board. I have a question first, if I could, for the former joint board chair, because you have some, well, I don't know, expertise and knowledge. I have a question of the former joint board chair, Mr. Ross, with respect to the process of preparing a budget. I mean, I am assuming, and I don't want to make an assumption without any knowledge, but I'm assuming that preparing a budget is going to take more time than we have this morning. So my suggestion would be, if I was correct in that assumption, that there be some committee set up, or if everybody wants to be in on it, that we meet separately to deal with the preparation of the budget. Because it's not something that we're going to accomplish this morning.
Well, we basically deal with the line item situation. I don't have a problem with set up a committee or sometime,
Well, I mean, I'd be willing to be part of the committee. I just am assuming, like I said, that's why I was asking Mr. Ross, that it's going to take us more time. And, you know, this is the first time we're seeing this information.
I don't think it will be a problem if we meet Friday or Monday next week. Just for that purpose, an executive meeting. So let me finish, please. A lot of us can have input. I don't want to come and say, I didn't know a day, then me, then there, and I didn't get a chance. So if all of us want to meet Friday or Monday next week at a particular time and place, you can come here, everybody go over the information you have in the old budget and come up with our recommendations to insert or delete or add or increase the amount. And at the same meeting to prepare the cover letter submitted to the Committee of Finance Chairman. So anybody have a problem with doing that? You have a better suggestion?
No, I don't have a better suggestion. I was just going to say personally that Monday is better for me. And
My only suggestion is that a committee of 7 and not a committee of 4. Like, let us all
well, anybody wants
go
to be
through the whole
involved.
thing and
But that's what I said, everybody's invited.
No,
There's no problem waiting.
I was understanding it to be another committee, another
No.
subcommittee
We're
meeting.
going to keep a special executive meeting for everybody in this district.
Understood.
We put it out from now, we'll ask Ms. Johnson to notify all the board members by email or phone call that on Monday,
I would not be here Monday.
but they are everybody to be here.
But if.
No, everybody.
I'm just saying that Monday is better for me. I don't know.
Fine, I have no problem.
It's the best day for everybody to say they're going to be available. If
I'll be here Friday, but Monday I will have to be excused.
anybody, you spend it, nobody saying nothing. You smile, you saying
It's
nothing.
the same Monday for you all, I mean.
No, I'm just talking about me. Monday is better for me because I'm probably not going to be out on the street.
Unless if I go on vacation, I good for everything.
Will you be
I'm not.
anywhere that you could call in?
Nope, I'm going to be with my doctors.
I'm good. But I think it should be all of us.
But all of us there ain't know except Mr. Williams. So if we tell Mr. Williams what day all of us said we will be here, ain't gonna be, I know I won't be here. And since nobody even said they ain't gonna be available, only Mr. Mohammed said Monday is good, Liliana said Monday is not good.
But you all, I mean, you all can continue without me, and then whatever happened, you can email me.
How long?
When we
My
finish
email is
Monday, we
working.
submit a letter.
Huh?
When we finish among ourselves Monday with the whole item on the budget process and information, whether we adding, increasing, deleting, or adding requiremements on the line item situation and total the budget, we're going to have a cover letter to be signed, we send to the committee and finance chairman, Mr. Green, according to the law. And
Then
what is,
somebody gonna go before the legislature to defend it?
the district chair would go, or anybody who wants to go. So it is for anybody from the board to attend it, but I have to be there. And I know I can be there 24th, God say less. So I can be representing what we have written and signed to.
Well, I move that you continue without me and just
I was trying to ask you, I'm sorry, when would you be back? You said not for 2 weeks.
And then 24th is the day we have to be there.
So you won't be here, you'll be here for the 24th, you won't be here then?
But I should not be the
Nobody saying you should or should not.
Nobody else has said, I mean, if everybody else says Friday, Friday's just not good for me. That doesn't include people meeting on Friday. I'm not trying to say it has to be Monday. Nobody else is really spoken. If it's done Friday, I could perhaps come Friday if it's late afternoon, but Friday morning, I can't make it at all.
Okay, what happened Friday 3 o'clock?
That's fine.
Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
I'd say 3 because it's going to take a couple hours.
I know that. 3 o'clock Friday, right here. Reaches Williams. You said no?
It's not a problem for you.
Oh, I said
It may be a problem for me. 3 o'clock. You say like 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening, I don't know what.
you did right here. I mean, either we can do it, you want to, the way you do it. See, what I try to avoid is to come on the city board, brand send the budget and I hand it over here.
Well, I
So I want everybody to have a
permission to
input in
do
it.
that without my present, because
Either way or the other, so what are you saying, we would do it Monday?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because either way, you have 6 people.
that's the majority.
So, it's just.
Monday 9 o'clock. That's it, okay?
Yeah.
Bear in mind that Monday, when we finish, we're gonna finalize it and send cover letter. Send the cover letter to the chairman of the finance committee, all the senators, and all the members of the committee to have one. So when you look at it, the day of the hearing, if you're there in St. Thomas, you may be able to get somebody to change something in there.
Mr. Chairman, in light of your decision to have the meeting on Monday 9 o'clock, I would like to raise another issue that probably we could discuss also on Monday. And remember, Mohi had referred to it earlier. The submission to the legislature as it relates to the MOVE Act or the election calendar is totally inadequate. Unfortunately, it was sent over the signature of the St. Thomas St. John District Board Chair. None of us received a copy of it.
I just signed it.
We just saw it today for the first time.
Besides that, did we already submit the one that was supposed to be correct to the legislature already?
No. Listen.
The reason I'm interrupting is because when you, Chair Brian and I were here for a conference call the other day, for our executive conference call meeting
Yes.
as well. Mr. Watlington was here and indicated that the election reform committee that was empowered by the joint board has never met. This information should have been coming from that committee. This is something that was submitted by only one person. What he said here, and you can vouch for what I'm saying, is that we haven't met and done anything. So he didn't even refer to the fact that he had sent a letter when we were here, whatever day it was. So like Member Ross is saying, it's the first time I've seen it, and it is totally inadequate because what we discussed, if you all remember in the joint board meeting, was all of the statutes and the entire calendar that needs to be changed. We cannot leave it up to the legislature to decide what they're going to change and what they're not going to change. I mean, ultimately, the decision is up to them. But as we found in the past, they have not gone along with our recommendations. Our recommendations have to be clear because in this instance, it will stop the the election. The feds have made it clear, we have an agreement with them that we have to be in compliance.
Right there is the consent decree.
Correct. And if we're not, there will be no election, because as long as there's a federal position on the slate, which there will be, as there always is, the delegate's position, they can shut the election down, and that's what they intend to do. So we have to make that abundantly clear. And as, I'll defer back to Mr. Ross, as he's saying, this is totally inadequate.
You remember the last time when Tony Salisbury was there in St. Croix and again in St. Thomas? There was a back and forth as to what days they want to move. That listing and that schedule may have never been complete. So are you prepared now to get back to that old listing and have it ready so we can go over it Monday and make all the insertions and corrections? Because that's what we need. I don't have a problem with it.
That was the nature. That was what I was about to request.
Yeah, well,
that you add that to the task of the committee as a whole.
Yeah, no problem.
On Monday. So
I don't have a problem with
so
it.
that at the end of the day we could come up with something that reflects
I
this.
think Ms. Moyen
And
had
not what she had.
Well,
But
then
we
I
worked on it
We
before.
worked on it before, we can
So
work on it again.
if you will permit us to work on it again and submit to the body on Monday, we'll have a document that
I
we.
remember, I don't like the people that are knows, but I try to keep them mentally. I think Ms. Moyen was sitting right here, who we agreed to have some documents written. And then when Ms. Salisbury was here, we were back and forth over changing those dates
Right.
later, earlier. So now that we know that Mr. Watlington on his own position, right, what he thought was sufficient, and we know it's not sufficient, we now have a responsibility of the district of St. Croix to bring in what was discussed, because I don't think he was there, he was in and out. So let us do what we're supposed to do, Monday, right, from 9 until, and then we complete those two assemblies. But you will walk with your,
We'll do it.
We'll get it done.
because you were changing dates in June and May and April and all that.
We'll get it done.
Right.
All right.
Since I have the floor with your permission again.
All the time, you got the floor.
Not all the time. At the last meeting, I made reference to a decision of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I have it.
As it relates to
Citizenship
voter ID and citizenship requirements, and I suggested that we go off and research that decision and come back with some information to the board, which I did. I have found out that the Supreme Court decision is based on federal law
Arizona.
that does not apply to the territories. Our local law that requires someone to provide proof of citizenship in order to register is still valid.
Except though, Mr. Ross, we have a federal office I know about. And I went and I got the case, the one in the Supreme Court and others in the Supreme Court. They had some dissenting opinion in the city of the court. So I have those things. I have Ms. Bennington, I have Ms. Johnson appearance, so the next time we meet solely on that issue, there will be the issue on the agenda for us to go over it collectively, because we will have to change some procedures on the application still for voter registration.
Well, that's not my understanding, but we could discuss it at the.
Yeah, sure, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because I think Thomas and Aline and somebody else wrote something on it. So,
But they were the dissenting opinion.
Which has
It has no. But anyway, we'll discuss it later. I just wanted, I promised the board I would get back
all right.
with some comments on it, and I have.
So we don't have, we move from there for Monday, 9 o'clock, we have 2 items to address. And the update and the interviews with the deputy supervisor, I think we took care of that yesterday in Mr. Thomas of the joint board meeting. We selected a supervisor election in the name of Ms. Carolyn Adams Fox, and we postponed the selection of the deputy supervisors to be sort of compliant with Title 18, Section 4, to have the supervisor election have recommendation process to the board to select the deputy supervisors in the districts. Each district will get involved in coming up with a preferred candidate along the supervisor election for deputy on either district. Is that correct, more or less, Mr. Ross?
Basically.
So we can pass that until
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Yesterday, in all the discussion we had, I never heard, and maybe I missed it, the time for Ms. Fox to come in and start working.
Well, that time depends on how soon the NOPA process has been completed for Mr. Abramson, and a notice on the chairperson of the joint board to notify, since Ms. Adams applied, we haven't received any communication from her that she declined the election. So if she haven't declined this election about being the supervisory election system, then we don't have a timetable. A reasonable time for her to respond is a week. Because she was told yesterday, I was there when Ms. Wells spoke to her. I spoke to her again last night, and she hadn't expressed to me that she had declined in the election. So I'm waiting for Ms. Wells and Ms. Benjamin to notify the completion of the NOPA, exiting Mr. Aronson, and employment date for Ms. Fox. Also allow them to have signatures for the interest fund and all the accounts in the banks to be completed with Ms. Fox and whoever. Yes, sir.
Question.
You finished? Ms. You finished?
Yeah, I just wanted to know when she's coming in.
In your conversation with the joint board chair, Ms. Wells, she's going to reduce her offer to Ms. Fox in writing, am I correct?
But that's what she said. I saw again after the minutes spoke to her again.
No, no, please.
Okay, so it has to be reduced in
In writing,
writing.
yeah.
And then at some point, when they have a discussion between them, based on whether the execution of termination, over, etc., then a formal date for her to start has to be established, because a NOVA has again to be prepared to activate that date. Because she can't report to work until the NOVA is, all NOVA is processed.
It's a couple of months in
No, it will be
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be that long.
But it's just a process.
I know that's the process, I'm just saying, I know how long the process is.
Well, it can be, but it doesn't have to be that long. I think we should. But I have a concern. I couldn't travel yesterday. Both me and my granddaughter are sick. But with respect to what happened yesterday, just to bring me up to speed, I had a concern because of what happened previously with both. Well, let me back up a little bit. Given that this is an 8-year position, despite the fact that this board has the authority for cause, as anybody does in the Virgin Islands, to terminate somebody, and I'm not looking forward to that being the situation. I'm not anticipating any negatives, but I was hoping that our offer to both whoever the supervisor is going to be, and the deputies would be more of a contractual offer to outline like probationary periods and personnel review periods, because that's something that we didn't do before, and I think you as a member and other people had expressed some concerns about not doing that, because I think that given that everybody is going to be new, it's going to take everybody some time to get up to speed. It's an enormous task for somebody to come in with new machines going into effect, and also nobody with historical knowledge other than the staff who can prove very helpful. But these are all people who are below all three of these positions, so it's going to be difficult, or it's going to take some time. I shouldn't say difficult, I'm not anticipating difficulty, but I just wish that we would more formalize the process. So I guess my long spiel is a question as to whether there was any formality or anything said about what this letter would contain.
Well, there was no discussion really among the board members of what the letter of notification would explain or say, because most of the people, I think when Mr. Ross was reminding everybody the day when the storm was coming and everybody was seeing the strong indicator of what to expect. Nonetheless, we didn't really discuss any formality in the letter except that we accepted for salary to be commensurate with the past supervisor elections, and that was basically what happened. And we adjourned it. I was trying to ask a motion to get some concern, but nonetheless, since the statute says for 8-year period, I think the board jointly can craft the agreement similarly, or to include the expectation of performance and being rated. But I have never seen before where a supervisor was being rated for the first year, the second, the third, and the 8th year. And if there was one, we'd like to look at it to at least know how it was done. But I think it would be in the best interest of the board and the individual to let the individuals know what we expect in compliance with performance, rather than just saying you have a job for 8 years and you do what you want. So if we can do that, I would ask Ms. Wells and Mr. Watland if they had in mind any ideas or recommendation, but nonetheless, that notification that would come from the joint board chairman who would appoint George selected to set a date for us to sit down with us. But in talking at the interviews, when we had interviews, Ms. Fox in particular, among others, said she was reading up and been asking questions, studying information in the system, and she was even willing to volunteer, even if she wasn't selected. So she's willing to volunteer to come in and familiarize herself in September support. That will be in our best interest. She should be in even before a formal date of employment begins.
Okay, and my other concern, given what was just said about the salary being in conformance with the previous supervisor's salary, I don't have any problem with that. My only concern is that if we make that offer, can we stick to it? Because OMB is supposedly already planning to cut the salaries of all three positions. So we don't even know at this point what the salary is. I mean, we can say this is our wish, but we can't formally say we're going to pay you X.
Except that the law authorizes the board of election to set salaries, not over.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same way, the
Oh,
law
we can't-
requires, no, the same way the law requires the governor to follow the
Well,
law, but there's an appropriation set, and we have yet to receive money.
Except that we need to
last year.
enforce our position from a legal position.
I
Because the board
agree.
can't cut the governor's cabinet salary. So he can set his, we don't set ours and stick to it and protect our employees.
I agree, but until the board starts doing that, again, just talking, and that's my concern,
We intend to.
My concern with, respect to the next year is consistently that our preparation is going to obviously depend on finances, and at this point, we don't even know, we don't know what they're planning to do for now, but we know that we didn't get $2.1 million. So, I believe it's incumbent upon us to find a way to resolve that issue. And also going forward if we are an independent agency, which the AG has written a legal opinion and said we are, we shouldn't be going through property and procurement. We shouldn't have the AG representing us as our counsel, because those things are in direct
That's what we need to make sure the
contravention
funds
with- Exactly, but again, through the Chair, this St. Croix District Board requests a copy of, request the joint board chair to give us the status of the, election reforms submissions. I mean, we know that.
The one that we had before?
No.
This one
The
here?
present one, we know there's none, but I mean, you know,
Okay,
to
all
get
right.
her to act on it. And also that we also request through you as our chair, copies of all of the financial information that Ms. Benjamin has available to her with respect to the status of all the accounts. Because she is, at the present, the only person that would have that information, as I understand it.
Well, what we can do to save some time is to receive the correspondence. We can ask Ms. Johnson to get in touch with Ms. Benjamin today and see if she can get that information to us. Fax it and the same covers with the letter. Huh?
And my motion died, there was no second.
But you didn't complete it.
I just completed, that's not even started, going on. My motion was two things, to request copies of all the financial information that Ms. Benjamin has, and also to request the joint board to give us the status of the election reform committee. It works.
Second, can I amend the motion?
Sure. Remember the motion?
I amend the motion that the joint board chair direct the chairman of the committee to meet expeditiously and report back to us.
Okay, I'll accept that, so I don't have to write it twice.
Okay.
That was the original motion.
We'll call the motion to,
Member Bryant,
yes.
Member Molinar,
Yes.
Member Moorhead, yes. Member Bernardo Daniel.
Yes.
Member Ross,
No.
Member Webster, absent.
Yeah.
Well, we have some presently, so we have 4 yeas, 1 nay, and 2
So,
absent.
you have to explain us what.
I voted, you know my procedure, right? I voted no, not because I'm against the motion, in the intended motion, but I wanted to,
Sorry.
I agree. But I wanted to, tell me what I should do now. But I wanted to go on record as reminding this board that notwithstanding any inaction from any other committee, that this board needs to get its act together and come up with its own election reform initiatives. And if we, because they don't do it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. And at some point or the other, we need to, just like we do it on Monday on the budget and the elected calendar, at some point or the other, at some future date, I would hope that this board would meet and put together an election reform package out of St. Croix, that we could ram down the throat of the joint board committee so we can get it on to the legislature.
So then, am I hearing you suggesting that you would like to chair that committee?
No, I did not say that.
No, that's what.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Move the motion and I'll second.
Since it's your idea, I was hoping that a few of us could have worked together and come up with a chair, because we already have all submissions from past boards, so we could put all of them together in one package, take it to the joint board and then move from there.
As you may note, I inferred,
Yes, sir.
that just like we do it on Monday with the budget on the calendar, that we should do the same thing in election reform.
So,
By
okay.
inference, that implies that I'm talking about the committee of the whole.
All right.
The committee of the whole is chaired by the chair, not
Right.
by anyone else.
So then, along with the next meeting, we're going to be addressing the Supreme Court ruling. We can also collectively work with all the recommendations that were submitted in 2011 before, to include and address those that we have to work on at the next meeting. We'll only have 2 items in the agenda. That will be in the next joint board meeting in August. And we probably will have to change that date from the 7th to address that, because you don't want to stay here with demonstration and training from this ESNS individuals, and then we get tired of it. So we can probably restructure our next joint board meeting the 9th or whatever it is. That would be fair, okay? So we get to that appropriate time. Ms. Johnson, what was asking about
Term was committee of the whole.
yeah,
That's what I said.
did you,
House members.
we wanted to get from Ms. Benjamin all the financial information of the activities for the Board of Election system, so we can look at it over here. Could you ask her to send it to you?
All the financial
That's what you
information.
want?
Yeah, all the financial information she has available to her, meaning the status of all of our funds, including what is, what we have to pay out as well as any monies we have remaining, balances.
The
Just so
election
we know, I
budget
mean, because
system.
otherwise we don't have the information we need to work on a budget, so.
Okay.
Balance of district, balance of systems, the election system, so.
Okay.
Alright, what else you have?
Just reminding you, Mr. Chairman, that motion did pass.
Yeah.
Regardless of the comment of my colleague, and as a result, you are also tasked with directing or requesting that the joint board supervisor have them meet as soon as possible, let them do whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Whatever we're doing, okay.
Request a copy of the old, items that you're discussing.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, we still have those old recommendations from 2011,
I
right?
think I have the copy.
I think Mr. Ross had a cover letter to Mr. Russell, President Russell, the recommendation in 2011, October. The last week in September it was.
But
The
if
new
you,
members don't have that, so.
if you could
Yeah.
give them the back stuff, because there was a whole package going
Before
way back
and now.
since they've been.
After we did the 2011, we submitted the last package to Mr. Russell, and anyone before him that is submitted, so they can have them for the next meeting we can. All right. Now we thoroughly completed the agenda. We are at the juncture where we want to allow a 10-minute question and comments on the public. And Ms. Dash, you said you wanted to introduce yourself and give us a little update on your employment and your experience and working around the election system. You're welcome to, we can hear from there if you want to stand. You can introduce yourself and tell us who you
So
are.
I'm Nancy Dash. I worked for Seneca County, New York Board of Elections before I moved down here. And we used the Dominion voting system, which Dominion bought out some of ES&S's stuff when they said ES&S not too much. But that's I believe these machines are very similar. One of my questions were to you, is ES&S doing your coding? Are you going to have someone here doing the coding of the ballots? Like, you all keep talking about the demonstration of the machines, but you can't run a machine until somebody has coded a ballot to run in that machine and then tested it and qualified it and all of that. I know in New York, a lot of the counties, some of the counties use ES&S and some use Dominion. And some of them just had the company, they would pay the company to make their ballots for them. It's very expensive. I mean, I know that I did the ballots for Seneca County. I was going to print one out for you today, and I didn't have long enough paper because we had 17-inch ballots. But I just didn't know if, with your machines, did you have a whole server system and all
Well,
of that?
what I recall about the machine, we have a portion of ES&S, ES200, a company, and it was ballot by demand, that prints ballot. The coding is a contractual agreement. I don't have the contract in front of me. So
Right.
I'm not right now to tell you yes or no that they do the coding. When that demonstration or training individual comes to the lodge, if you're willing to be here listening, and you can ask the same question you're asking us, and if you want, you can probably submit some of the concerns to all of us that we can ask to be sure those concerns that you are asking about is in the contract agreement for training or missing.
Right,
So I don't have a
like,
problem.
I know with Dominion, with our training for staff, we had commissioners, so the commissioners, the deputy commissioners, and the 2 machine techs, which I was one of, we'd have one of each party, is the way we did it. We all went to a special training for the coding of the ballots. The deputy commissioners and the commissioners both just sat there and said, I don't do computers, you know, so, but they paid $5,000 a piece for all of us to be there. And in the end, you have two people who code your ballots, one Democrat, one Republican, is the way New York does it, just to make sure that it's fair, I guess. But they wouldn't train everybody to do that, and you're not gonna train the public, obviously. That's a different training than the just general use of the machines and election day, opening, closing, sealing, you know, all of that type of stuff.
I'm sorry. As you said, I don't think that we could answer that question now without the copy of the information in front of us, but I have a question for you if I may. I'm sorry, I said I have a question to you if I could. If you're saying that you believe the machines are similar, so it's a tabulated machine that you were using.
Right, tabulars, yes.
Did you, while I understand and I agree with the purchase of new machines in our district because what we were using was still in use in several jurisdictions, my concern is that the public's belief, I believe the public may think that this is now the panacea, that we have new machines and everything's going to be fine, and there can be no more questions about the integrity of elections or whatever, but, you know, my understanding is that any machine could be compromised, so, you know, a new machine doesn't necessarily mean no problems, and my question to you is, what did you experience in New York? Any problems that we might be able to anticipate and work around, because we've never used that before, so I'm a little
Right.
concerned about the first time out in a gubernatorial election.
Should've seen us.
Yeah. And I know what happened in DC when they used machines, it was like a riot, really. Because they, and, you know, and it wasn't even the same machine, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the machine or
Right.
one machine is better than the other, but just in the use of an employee of these machines in New York, were there any things that we should be aware of that we might be able to?
I have to say, our biggest problems were poll worker errors. Peeling the wrong seals off. You could, 6 a.m. on election day, they're calling and you're running all over the county. My county was a little bigger than this island, and I'm running from polling place to polling place. We had 27 polling places, and just because you know, it was human error. It was not the machines. Other errors we had or other problems we had on election day were the ballots wouldn't tear properly, so then the machine didn't want them because they had chunks out of them. The machines ran fine. Before the elections, we run thousands and thousands and thousands of ballots through that are marked in a specific way for undervotes and overvotes and all of that type of stuff to make sure that they're catching all of these things. And any time that our tapes from the machines didn't match up to what we said we should have, it was because somebody marked the ballots wrong. You run back through the ballots, look through them, and you would find the mistake in the ballots. It was never the machine. And I can tell you, because it was our first election with it, we ran 3 times as many ballots as we were legally responsible to do.
Okay, so no jamming, no, because that's my other concern.
The jamming is what we would get with badly torn ballots, and that's no, I was upstate New York, little teeny tiny.
And you had, okay.
Well, I mean, like, Lodi, where I lived, I think we had 543 voters.
Okay.
So no, we had, and then, you know, like Waterloo had a couple thousand voters, but not like New York City where there's hundreds of
So
thousands of people.
your area basically was only Poughkeepsie and Peekskill area only?
No, Ithaca, Syracuse,
Oh.
I was way upstate, farm country. But no, the problem, we had 3.5-hour training sessions for these poll workers, where they came in and worked on the machines, and that's all they did. They had been doing for years the old system with the lever pullers, and so we went through these long trainings, and they all say they have it and everything. it wasn't enough. Election day came, but the average age of a poll worker in that area of New York State was 60 plus. And they were just, the machines to them were, it's technology and it's gonna, and they're not really that difficult to use. But the public did seem to like the fact that you have a paper trail. Because we would tell them, well, you get to check, and that's what I did, okay, accept it. Or you can say, no, reject that, give it back, and you can void that ballot and get a new ballot and start over again. They had as much time as they wanted to sit down with this ballot. But then, if there was a question, now we have a box full of ballots. And you can go through them by hand, well, and you have to do a 1% audit the day, we had to noon the day after the election. We picked one, in our case it was one machine because we only had 26.
And based on what you had witnessed, was that you did have mistakes, human error,
Yeah.
but you were able to still go back
And find it.
through
Yes.
the paper side of it,
Right.
and checking the electronic side of it, and to the paper side of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because you still have your poll books when they come in,
Mhm.
and then you have paper ballots, you have your affidavit ballots, you have your voided ballots. And it may take us a week after the election to figure out where that one missing ballot is, because no ballot gets thrown away,
Understood.
ever. Yeah.
Were you utilizing e-poll books or you sending poll books?
What's that?
E-poll books, were you utilizing e-poll books?
Registered.
Electronic poll books.
Well, yeah,
Under poll books.
They printed them out, and the signatures were from the last time, and they had bar scanners, and, yeah. I didn't really have much to do that, the machines were mine. And election day, my job was to sit at the office and wait for that phone to ring.
One question for you. How willing are you to hear some concerns and question that the board can question the manufacturer training when you get here to satisfy the concerns and what we may be told to compare what you know about?
Right, and like I said, ES&S is not the machines I use, but they're very, I looked at them, I looked at them online, checked them out, they're very
The
similar.
miner was here.
They're very similar. Dominion was here?
Yeah, they were here.
You should pick Dominion. I love Dominion. The people in Dominion were so easy to work with. I mean, I still kind of have contact with some of them because they're so friendly and they're right there. You call and they're right there.
So how soon will you be able to get that concern and questions so they should remember?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of.
No, I said, how soon would you be able to give us some questions and concerns that we...
Oh, you want me to make a list of questions
Right,
for
and
you
then
to...
members here when the training is taking
Okay.
place, he or anybody here can have those questions to clarify information that might
Okay,
not
yeah,
mentioned.
I can do that in the next couple of days.
Well, okay, when you get there, I see what unfolds, so you could come here and give it to Ms. Johnson,
Okay.
and we can have it here, and we leave a number of contact we can find you. And maybe if you be available, we can, if all the public will be able to the demonstration and training, you can sit in and listen.
The most hours I put in leading up to an election was training. Training poll workers, training staff, training, and then taking the machines out to the public.
But you have, do you have time during the day, or you work in someplace that you don't have to miss your job to be here listening, or questioning, if they have training and all this, 7 to 8?
I could probably be here this afternoon.
But we have that information and questions so we can show the members.
Right.
It's okay. Anything else?
So, excuse me, in your scenario then, you are responsible for training the election officials?
Well, they went to the training for the coding of the ballots and stuff, and they were just like, well, we're never going to do that. So, but I trained them on anything on the machines that they had questions on, and they had been trained before I even got there, but then they would come in.
By the company?
Right, and then they would come in and be like, I don't remember how do we turn it on? And, it was just, there are a lot of people where the technology is not something they want to do.
Yeah, but technology and coding is something the manufacturer really took control of. Not any of it.
But like my question is when it comes to that, is in your contract, that's what you need to look
Yeah,
at.
right.
For me, is are they doing your ballots? And a lot of
I
times.
have, I'm not totally familiar with the whole back contract,
Right,
but I'm saying the day that the training starts with the board members and the staff,
right,
those concerns will be raised and asked.
right.
So in putting those questions together,
Right.
together to Ms. Johnson, we will have it available to all the board members and the people who will be trained to get those other concerns cleared up.
So do you have an election this fall?
No,
No. Okay, so that's good because
2014.
I was gonna say, if you did, we usually started in July with getting ballots ready for November, or September.
2014.
Maybe I was ready for all that.
Because we had them and then they had the town elections. They could kind of rent us for the local elections, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So you represent yourself or company or individually?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just me.
Okay. Anybody has any questions?
I have a question about like
Now, you have my resume.
Yeah.
I have a question about people voting individually and then going to the machine. How did that movement progress? That's my concern.
It went very well unless we had over helpful coworkers who, we always told them, you can't approach a person, you can't
Right.
touch their ballot. You can say, if you need help, I'm here, and they were supposed to stay 4 feet away from the machine. And if the person wasn't sure how to put it in, and I put stickers on the machines, I have things where I made pictures of the machines and arrows, and you still had questions, you still had problems, but overall, it was place ballot here, and the ballots theoretically can run no matter how they put them in. It doesn't have to be this end forward, it's just, it should read it no matter how it goes in. And if they wanted help, it was supposed to be one person from each party came over to stand with them and give them, so that nobody could say, well, you tried to change their vote or something. But that's once you've marked it and walked up, you can't change someone's vote. But then they also have the right to privacy as to who they voted for. So that's
No problems with long lines or delays at the polls or whatever.
Yeah, it was much better than the old lever system because there was like 1 or 2 machines, and everybody had to stand in there and make their decision. Where here, I give you your ballot, you go sit over there, and you can take as long as you want. We had it set up so people had we would take a table like this, and we had cardboard or, the privacy things. If you wanted to take a half an hour to read that ballot, make your decision, that's fine. Because he took 2 minutes, go on, someone else is in his seat. And we didn't have a huge lines, even in our big districts.
That's the election reform commission. Our law requires the vote of the vote within 5 minutes. You gotta delete that.
Well,
Yeah, see, we didn't have a time restraint
And
for people.
in meetings I've gone to in the States, everybody that I've ever talked to said they allow voters as long as they want.
Yeah, I think.
not too long before us.
But like I said, if you have it set up right, generally that it's okay, because you might have somebody taking a while, but most people they know what they want and they put it down. But some people want to read all the fine print at the bottom, and, so.
All right, okay, well, thank you very much. So we
Thank
look
you.
forward to getting information. We keep in touch with you. Leave your information and number so we can call you.
I mailed some in to you, yes.
Okay, all right, no problem.
So, and I will work on some questions that you should ask me.
All right, thank you.
So,
Thank you for your information.
okay, thank you.
Any questions from the audience or concern? Mr. Hobson? Mr. Roches, you have to leave now?
Me in about 5.
Okay.
No less than 5.
Mr. Hobson, you have a
5.
question?
Good day, happy to be here again. Happy that we have picked someone to oversee the election. Hope it will be a smooth process. And happy to see board, same criteria board, all members are getting on board. That is nice. One little thing, I was disappointed at the last hearing with Cape Hart, Senator Cape Hart. Some of what went down was very disappointed. Some of the things that I heard it, and I didn't think she really wanted information. I personally appreciate she just keep her hearing before I was asked. I didn't think she wanted true information. because it was there and she didn't accept it, and the truthfulness of everybody wasn't there. Some people couldn't come into the chamber in sleepers, and others could have come in like a wild dog and operate. And I think the behavior of that individual, and nobody chastised him, and when other people come in, they stop at the door, they don't come in and slipper. And I also sit here today and hear that when the new board came in accepting the new people, they voted to dismantle the election reform from who had it before, and they're stuck now and saying we have to go back, like they said, dog eat it for me, probably to pick up the old stuff to get something done. Because if I understand what's said here today, the individual who put chairperson over the reform election haven't done anything yet. And some of the same members
Mr. Chairman,
who moved.
Mr. Chairman, I have a problem reacting to members from the public asking us a question for information purposes, but I have no desire to sit here in the election. So maybe excuse me.
Sure you do.
Thank you.
That's my right.
You have a right? Okay, no problem. Well, Mr. Attention concern, yeah, you're right, yeah. Mr. Yeah, okay. No, when I was so far.
I'm joking.
What happened to it? Go ahead. They have to leave, That's all right.
I expected it.
But what I'm saying though,
You didn't know I was lying with him, so
is
something
if,
like
we want to be able to move past the past and collectively work and complete our work together. None of us in here have to talk and spend one and then we'll leave it. He don't have to go out with me, he don't have to talk to me, no, he have to speak to me and say, when we come here, we will talk to each other and laugh at each other.
But as I'm saying, I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, so I'm saying, that is my concern.
Yeah.
So when we move from here, what happens with the CAPA committee that is all controlled over the legislative hearing? What we try to do, or I try to do here, is to give everybody an opportunity to talk as not as the one, say what the one, vote for the one. And that's how we will have it done here.
Yeah, but
But
I appreciate that.
in any event though,
Yeah.
we can only move and get better if we allow the public to express the pleasure, the displeasure, disagreement, or agreement with anything I or anybody say here. So I don't take no offense to what anybody think and say, but when I leave here, I go about my business, and I think everybody here does the same thing. So
Well, actually, when
we don't want to aggravate and agitate the members if they don't want to hear.
No, when it doesn't finally, when we come here, that is what we have, always get our opportunity to talk, and we should say it where we fit. Because I'm saying I come here all the time, and we try to have a reform election before it was going, and then all at once, we dismantle, and then we almost back to square one. And if I understand we want to use, we might have to end up use those same old suggestions that went in to get something going.
Well, that's because they selected a new board
New chair.
and the new chairs created the thing. When we had a past joint board, the election reform committee, when it was formed first, was formed as a district committee. It was since I was the chairman, I thought it made better sense to have a joint board election where everybody from each district were working together. After that was dismantled, I can't state no claim to anything except that I asked Ms. Johnson to look for what we submitted, and before I submitted, our committee submitted that, and to even recently to address the concerns so that this board again will have a collective effort from a board.